Hi guys, welcome to latest video of our Python coding challenge. And in this challenge 4, we're gonna work on writing a unit test for a function area of square. So we're gonna write a function that calculates area of a square, and then for that function we're gonna write a unit test. So let's get started. So first we're gonna define a function area of square, we can call it, and we'll just take an input. And we all know area of square is side multiplied by twice. So this sounds like a simple function, but now when we write a unit test, we'll come to know if we have covered all the possible scenarios of calculating area of a square. So for example, if I call this function area square of, let's say, 5, and I'll print this. Okay, so it's giving me the perfect value of 25, area of square if size 5. Now we think like this is a simple function, so the test scenario would also be sounding simple. But what if I give of a side a -5? Now when I run this, you could see for a +5 value it's giving area as 25, and for a -5 also it's giving area as 25. But logically, for any dimensions like square, triangle, rectangle, they do not have a negative value for the side, so it has to be always a positive number, like greater than 0. So that is one check that we are missing here. And also if you see, if I give let's say some string, now when I give this, you could see it's breaking because it's an unsupported operand type, because we are passing a string, and this one is expecting an integer so that it can perform the square. So that's the reason it's failing. So these tests we need to cover in our unit testing, so that when we actually work with live code, we should see all the scenarios where the code could go fail and accommodate accordingly all the possible logic involved. Right, so right now we're gonna perform these testing. So I'll take these off. Now we need to create a new file called the test file, and it's always advised to have the prefix as test underscore and then your actual program file, so that it will be easy to associate like which is a test file and which is your actual file. Okay, now we have to import a unit test. So unit test is the library which will have the classes, the required classes and methods that we'll be importing here. And the second thing is, from this area underscore square, we need to import this method. So from area underscore square import square. Okay, so once we have done that, now we're gonna actually write a class for our unit testing. So let's call it as test area square, and this will inherit from uh, the class test case from unit test library. So from unit test library, we have a class called test case with certain methods, and we are inheriting all those methods into our test area square. Now we will see what are those methods. Like these are the assert methods that we're going to use. Now first we'll test for the values. So test of area, let's say all right. So now the first method we're going to use is assert almost equal. So assert almost equal. Now here what we need to do is, first we need to call this area of square method and pass in a value, let's say 5 that we have tested, and then here we're gonna send the actual. So this asset almost equal method will first call this function area of square, and it's returning this value, and it's gonna 5, and it will compare this return value with the value we are giving here. So it should be it should match with 25. Let's say we want to test let's say 10, then they should be 100. Okay, so let's say first we will test for these two items only. Now how do we test our unit test? The command is python -m unit test. Okay, so when we execute this command, it's gonna pick the test file which starts with test underscore or ends with test underscore, and it's gonna execute that. Now it has ran one test because we have um, testing for test underscore area method, and it says okay, which means both these values are passed the test. So now we have our second scenario when the value is less than 0, like when the value is a negative integer. Now for that we need to accommodate if s is less than 0. We need to raise a exception. Raise the exception is called value error, and this value error will say like square dimensions cannot be negative. Okay, because we are trying to calculate area of a square, and the input someone is sending is a negative number, so it cannot be considered as a good input. So for that also, if we want to test that, we do a new method called, let's say we'll do it as test value. So here it should raise a value error, and now here we just say we'll not pass it as a parameter, but we'll give the method name, and then we'll pass the value as a third parameter. So asset raises method accepts three parameters. One is what kind of error it's going to raise, and second is what is the method it's going to call, and what is the input value. So if you're calling this method area of square with an input of -5, it should raise a value error. So that's the meaning of this line. Now, so when we execute this, so it's going to call area of square and pass in like -5 as value. So when it comes to this function area of square and it takes the -5 value, it will execute this if condition like -5 is less than 0, which is true. So it would raise a value error. So this value error gets matched with this value error, and this will return written as a pass. The test will pass in this scenario. So that's how it will match up with the code, and then it will say whether the test passed or failed. So if I execute again, you can see like it has ran 2 tests and it says okay. All right, now we have another condition where if we have something integer passed, or if we have let's say even a boolean value is passed. So how do we address that? So how do we address is by using type. So if type of yes in, so the area or the side of a square could be an integer or a float, but if it is not any of the two, like either integer or float, then it would raise a type error. Okay, so this is the type error we're going to throw if we are given an input which is not of an integer or float. So if they give an integer float, then it will this condition will fail, then it will come here, then it will verify whether it is greater than 0 or not. If it is not greater than 0, then it will throw a value error. Otherwise, then finally it will execute the proper area of a square and it will return that value. So this we can test like we can call these methods with any name. So here the same asset rises, so this time it will be type error, and it's the same. So let's say we send a value of square, and So one more type error. This time, let's say we're not sending a text, but we'll send a Boolean value. So yeah, so Boolean value true or false will have the first letter uppercase in Python to be recognized as a Boolean value. So if we are sending true or square as an input to area of square, then they don't make any sense. So they have to throw a type error, and the type error is like square dimensions must be non-negative real numbers. So let's test this one now. There you go. So it has ran 3 tests, all successful. So this is the perfect way of writing a method, a proper method if you want to calculate area of a square. So because we have to consider all the cases of what the input could be, whether it is relevant to our function or not, and how to address if we get a irrelevant input, and then properly write the function so that it gives the right answer to the. So that's about it. A simple method, and I wanted to explain on the unit test using this example. I hope this was helpful. Please let me know your feedback, and please share and subscribe to our channel. There are a lot more videos to come. I'll see you all in our next video. Thank you.